The day the alien king arrived on Earth, nothing felt normal. People had seen alien visitors before, but never a ruler traveling without a large guard, without an escort, without warning. He came alone, and in his arms he carried a creature so big and so heavy that most humans froze the moment they saw it. The creature looked like a wolf, but not like the wolves people knew on Earth. Its body was larger, its fur thicker, and its eyes glowed faintly, as though a small blue fire lived deep inside them. Even in the king's strong arms, it trembled in pain. The arrival happened near a large research center outside a quiet city. Workers started shouting for security the moment they saw the alien king stepping past the gates with the wounded creature in his arms. The creature's breathing was rough, deep, and uneven. With every breath, the sound echoed like a distant rumble. People backed away, frightened that the creature might wake suddenly and attack. No one knew its temperament, and no one wanted to learn the hard way. The alien king kept calling out for help, his voice calm but strained. He explained that his companion had been badly injured on another world, that he needed someone on Earth to treat it because his own world lacked the right medical resources. He had flown across half the galaxy with no rest, hoping Earth would understand how urgent the situation was. But the answer he got was silence, and then excuses, and then fear. One official stepped closer and asked what kind of creature the king was carrying. When the king said it was his guardian beast, the officials quickly whispered among themselves. Many believed guardian beasts were dangerous and uncontrollable. Some had heard stories that such creatures attacked anyone who got too close, even when healthy. Now this one was hurt, trembling, and possibly unpredictable. The worry spread fast. No one wanted to be the first to approach it. Medical staff from inside the facility peeked out, stared at the creature, and shook their heads. Some said they were not trained to treat alien animals. Others said they did not know how to sedate it. A few openly admitted fear. Humans had dealt with alien visitors many times, but treating an alien king's massive beast was more than they felt prepared for. It was easier to step back than to take responsibility. The creature let out a soft, pained growl, and the sound made everyone jump. Its body shifted slightly in the king's hold, and a wave of panic moved through the crowd. People backed away even more. A few security drones floated into the air, scanning the creature. The king quickly raised his hand for them to stop, warning them that the creature reacted badly to sudden movements, and to any device that emitted bright light. The drones retreated, but the fear remained. The king lowered himself to the ground, placing the creature gently on a flat platform near the entrance. Humans watched from a distance as he knelt beside it. He whispered something in his own language, a quiet, calming sound. The creature closed its eyes for a moment, as if the voice soothed the pain. The king's face showed exhaustion. His journey had clearly taken a toll, and carrying the creature had drained even his strength. A few brave workers whispered that maybe they should try to help, but every time the creature twitched or breathed heavily, they hesitated again. The risk felt too high. Humans like to think of themselves as fearless, but in that moment, the fear of getting hurt overpowered the instinct to help. Someone suggested calling military veterinarians who had worked with alien species before. But when the military team arrived, they too stepped back after one look. They said the creature's size and unknown biology made it unsafe. They recommended sending the king to another facility far away, but the journey would take too long, and the creature did not seem to have much time left. It was weakening fast. The king tried explaining again. His voice remained calm, but there was a growing sadness in his tone. He said the creature was not wild, not aggressive, and not dangerous unless someone threatened him. The creature had protected him all his life. It had saved him more times than he could count. It had stood between him and danger without hesitation. Now, When the creature needed others to stand for it, no one would. Humans listened, but fear still spoke louder in their minds. They had never seen a guardian beast before. The glowing eyes, the size, the heavy breathing, it all felt too unfamiliar. Most people preferred familiar dangers over unknown ones. And this creature was very unknown. The king adjusted a cloth underneath the creature's head, trying to make it comfortable. The creature opened its eyes for a moment, looking up at him. Even in pain, its gaze was sharp. It tried to lift its head, but the weight of its injuries held it down. The king gently placed his hand on its shoulder, telling it to rest. The creature tried to obey, but the pain was too much. It let out another low sound, softer this time, almost like a cry. The sound changed the atmosphere slightly. A few humans began noticing something they had not paid attention to before. The creature was not snarling, not snapping, not acting like a predator ready to attack. It was simply hurting. And in pain, even the strongest beings looked vulnerable. But fear was still stronger in most hearts. No one approached. The sun began to sink, turning the sky into shades of orange and blue. The evening air grew colder, and the creature's breathing became weaker. The king looked around, hoping someone would change their mind. He did not look angry. He looked tired. He had crossed galaxies with hope, believing Earth was a world full of helpers. Stories he had heard spoke of humans stepping in even when situations were dangerous. But now he watched everyone keep a safe distance, unwilling to take the risk. A group of scientists discussed possible treatments from afar, but never stepped closer. They talked about unknown toxins, the possibility of infection, the reaction of alien biology to human medicine. They listed dangers, one after another. They always found a reason not to act. The king finally spoke in a low voice, addressing the crowd. He explained that the creature had been struck by a strange kind of energy on a distant planet. The injury had damaged its skin and caused a deep internal pain. He said he had tried every remedy available in his kingdom, but nothing worked. Every healer on his world said the same thing. They lacked the knowledge to treat a creature exposed to energy from that region. Earth's medical centers, however, had more experience with cross-species injuries because Earth served as a neutral world between many civilizations. He said he came here with faith, trusting Earth to help. And now he feared he had been wrong. Those words reached some of the listeners. A few humans lowered their eyes, feeling uncomfortable with the idea that they were failing a living creature that was obviously suffering. But discomfort was not enough to overcome fear. No one moved. The creature's body shook again, this time with more intensity, and its glowing eyes dimmed for a moment. The king placed both hands on its fur, whispering faster, desperately trying to keep it awake. The scene felt heavy. Even the humans who had been too afraid to help felt the weight of guilt pressing down on them. The world around grew quiet. The wind slowed. The workers stopped talking. The military stayed still. Every gaze was fixed on the creature whose life hung in the balance. Somewhere inside the research center, alarms beeped softly, marking the end of working hours. But no one listened. Everyone was fixated on the creature's struggle. For the first time, their fear blended with another feeling sympathy. They saw not a beast, not a monster, but a living being clinging to life. The king looked up at the humans, his eyes reflecting sadness mixed with silent hope. He did not beg, but the weight of his expression felt like a plea. Still, no one came forward. Time passed slowly. Every breath the creature took sounded louder in the silence. The king shifted closer to shield it from the cold evening air. He looked exhausted, his shoulders slumped. He had carried his companion across half the galaxy, asking for help from world after world. Earth was his final hope, and even here, the door to help remained closed. Some humans whispered among themselves again, wondering what would happen if the creature died on their soil. Would the alien king blame them? Would it lead to conflict? Would they be responsible for the death of a royal guardian beast? The fear grew even more complex. They were no longer afraid of the creature. They were afraid of the consequences. But still no one stepped closer. As the sky darkened and the lights around the facility began to turn on, something subtle changed in the air. People began to feel uneasy, not because of danger, but because of inaction. Watching the alien king's grief touched something deep in them. Humans were not heartless. They simply needed a push, a moment that reminded them of their own moral center. And that moment was close, even if they didn't know it yet. Something was about to shift, something small but powerful, something that would turn the silent fear of the crowd into a spark of courage. But at this point, the king did not see that spark. He only saw doors closing, heads shaking, and a world full of people unwilling to take the risk. Part 1 ends with the king kneeling beside his wounded companion, surrounded by humans who are afraid to help him, unaware that the next moment will change everything. The moment the sun dipped lower and the air turned colder, a quiet movement happened at the edge of the crowd. Most people were whispering, debating, or pretending not to see the alien king kneeling beside his wounded companion. But one person, someone who had been watching silently the whole time, stepped forward without making a sound. This person was known simply as the healer. Not a famous doctor, not a high-ranking specialist, just a calm, steady person who had spent years treating injured animals and studying alien biology in private labs. The healer had no fancy badge, no authority, and no special title. But they carried something the others lacked, a sense of responsibility that did not shrink in the face of fear. At first, no one noticed the healer walking toward the alien king. People were too focused on arguing about safety protocols and worrying about consequences. But when the healer reached the thin line of security, a few guards finally turned and held out their hands as if to stop them. The healer simply raised a small medical kit, nothing threatening, and waited patiently. Something about their calm expression made the guards hesitate. The guards stepped aside reluctantly, unsure if they should allow it, but also unable to find a reason strong enough to block someone who looked so determined. The alien king looked up, surprised to see anyone approaching. His eyes held exhaustion, but also a small spark of curiosity. Most humans had kept their distance all day. To see one walking toward him without fear was unexpected. The healer stopped a few steps away, not wanting to seem forceful or invasive. They spoke softly, almost in a whisper, saying they wished to help if help was still welcome. The alien king studied them for a moment, trying to understand their intentions. The healer did not look armed, did not look afraid, and did not look like someone acting out of pressure. They simply looked like someone who saw a living creature in pain and could not walk away. The king shifted slightly, creating a small space beside his companion. That gesture alone said everything. When the healer stepped closer, the crowd gasped. Many believed the creature might snap at anyone who came near. But instead of reacting with aggression, the creature only opened its eyes halfway, tired and hurting. The healer knelt slowly, moving with careful intention. Every small action mattered around a creature that was already frightened and in pain. The healer did not reach out immediately. Instead, they spoke in a calm voice, introducing themselves, letting the creature hear the tone rather than the words. They placed their equipment on the ground gently, so no sudden sound would disturb the creature. Then they looked to the alien king, asking permission to begin the examination. The king nodded, his voice low and grateful. He explained the injuries again, giving details he had not told the others, because no one had been willing to listen. He described how the creature had protected him during a dangerous mission, and how it had been hit by a strange source of energy. He spoke with a heaviness that only someone watching a loved companion suffer could understand. As the healer listened, They studied the creature carefully. The wolf-like guardian had long strands of thick fur, patches burned away, skin cracked in some areas, and breathing that sounded like each inhale took a battle to complete. Its muscles twitched from pain, and its paws trembled slightly. It wasn't a threat. It was a being holding on with whatever strength it still had. The healer opened their kit and put on scent-neutral gloves. They moved slowly, letting the creature see every motion. When they finally touched its fur, the creature flinched at first. Not because of aggression, but because the pain was deep. The healer paused, waiting for the creature to relax again. Then they continued with gentle pressure, examining the wounds. The alien king watched every movement with a mixture of fear and hope. He did not intervene, but his posture stayed alert, ready to support his companion if needed. The healer noticed this protective stance and respected it. There was no rush. Every second was handled with care. The healer found that the creature's main injury wasn't just the burn on the surface. It had deeper internal swelling, likely caused by the strange energy mentioned by the king. Human medicine could handle swelling, but alien biology made things more complicated. Yet the healer was not discouraged. They reached into their kit and took out a scanning device that worked without bright lights, knowing bright light could scare the creature. When the scan began, a quiet hum filled the air. The creature stiffened, but the healer placed a calming hand on its shoulder. The contact was light and steady. Slowly, the creature relaxed again. The king watched with surprise. His guardian beast rarely accepted touch from strangers. This moment was unusual, almost unheard of. People from the crowd leaned forward, unable to believe what they were seeing. Minutes earlier, most of them thought no human could approach the beast safely. Now someone sat beside it, touching it with steady hands, speaking to it in gentle tones, and the creature allowed it. The scan revealed more damage. There were internal fractures and inflammation around the rib area. Nothing impossible to treat, but dangerous if ignored. Time was limited, but the healer felt a small sense of relief. The condition was critical, yet manageable. The healer explained everything to the king, using simple, clear words. The king listened carefully, his expression shifting from hopelessness to a fragile sense of comfort. For the first time since arriving on Earth, he could see a path forward. The healer then asked for specific conditions: lower lights, no sudden noises, no drones, and no crowd too close. They explained that the creature needed a calm environment. Not a lab with loud machines, not a military base full of guards, but a quiet, gentle space where it could breathe without fear. The officials hesitated again, unsure whether to trust this one volunteer. But the crowd had begun watching the healer with respect. They had seen someone act bravely, without shouting, without demanding attention, without fear. The officials finally gave in, ordering the surrounding people to step back and dimming the lights near the entrance. The healer prepared a mild, sedative spray that worked through scent rather than injection. This prevented any painful contact and reduced the risk of startling the creature. When the healer sprayed a gentle cloud of the calming scent, the creature blinked slowly, its rigid muscles softening a little. The king looked amazed. He had never seen a method like this before. With the creature slightly more relaxed, the healer finally began cleaning the burns. They used a liquid that cooled the skin instantly and eased the pain. Every time they applied it, the creature let out a quiet exhale, almost as if thanking the healer without words. The healer then began checking the deeper injuries. They pressed lightly along the rib area, watching for reactions. The creature winced, but did not growl or snap. It understood that the healer was trying to help. That trust alone moved everyone watching. Hours passed as the healer worked. The evening turned into night. A soft wind blew through the area, carrying the scent of the medical herbs the healer used. The alien king stayed silent, watching the healer's dedication with deep respect. He had seen many healers in his lifetime, but none worked like this patient, gentle, and focused entirely on the well-being of a creature most people feared. The crowd slowly grew quiet. No one whispered anymore. No one suggested retreating. Instead, they watched with a kind of quiet awe. They realized that the healer had done what all of them were too afraid to try. It wasn't strength or power that allowed the healer to approach the guardian beast. It was calm understanding, something far more uncommon. The healer finally finished the initial treatment and helped the king adjust the creature into a more comfortable position. The creature's breathing had steadied slightly. Not healed, not safe yet, but stable enough to continue treatment. The healer then spoke softly to the king, saying that this was only the beginning. There was much more to do, and it would take long hours, maybe days, to bring the creature back to full health. But the healer promised to stay as long as needed. They did not fear the creature. They respected it, and they cared. The king bowed his head, unsure how to express gratitude in human ways. His eyes showed everything relief, respect, and a silent promise that he would never forget this act of courage. The crowd stepped back further, leaving the healer and king the space they needed. Some humans felt ashamed they had not helped earlier. Others felt inspired, wondering if they too might find courage like that. Someday, as the night deepened, the healer prepared temporary bandages and calming drops. The creature finally drifted into a light sleep, no longer trembling from constant pain. The king placed his hand gently on its fur, whispering a grateful breath. For the first time since arriving on Earth, hope finally felt real. The night settled deeper around the research center, and most of the workers had already gone home. Only a few security guards stayed nearby, watching from a safe distance, though now their faces looked less fearful and more curious. The healer and the alien king stayed close to the guardian beast, working quietly under dim lights. The creature slept, breathing slowly, but still showing signs of pain. Its chest rose and fell unevenly, and sometimes a small tremor ran through its body. The healer knew the first treatment was only temporary. The real struggle would begin now, when they needed to work on the deeper injuries that were harder to reach and far more dangerous if left untreated. The strange energy that had struck the creature had caused damage no human had seen before. The surface wounds were painful but manageable. The hidden ones were the true threat. The alien king remained kneeling beside his companion, refusing to rest even though exhaustion had drawn heavy lines under his eyes. He kept one hand gently on the creature's back, as though grounding it, reminding it that it wasn't alone. The healer could see the strain in his posture, but also the love in every movement. This was not just a guardian beast. This was a companion who had stood with the king through dangers most humans could not imagine. The healer prepared new tools from their kit, simple ones meant to help with swelling and internal pressure. They tested each device quietly, so it wouldn't shock the creature when it woke. Every detail mattered. Every sound, every change in light, even the temperature of the air, could affect the creature's state of mind. The king watched silently, impressed by how the healer worked without rushing. Most people would panic or hurry in fear of doing harm, but the healer acted like they were tending to a scared animal found injured in a forest. Gentle, patient, present. After a while, the creature stirred. Not fully awake, but drifting in that space between sleep and alertness. The healer stopped immediately, waiting for its breathing to settle. The creature's ears twitched, and its glowing eyes slowly opened halfway. When it saw the healer beside it again, its muscles tensed for a moment, but then relaxed. It recognized the calm scent from earlier. It remembered the gentle touch, and it trusted it. The healer spoke softly, explaining what they were going to do next. The creature didn't know human words, but it understood tone. It lowered its head slightly, giving access to the side where the injuries were worst. That simple motion surprised even the king. His guardian beast rarely allowed anyone to come that close when he was hurt, not even healers from his own world. The healer began applying a warm herbal mixture that eased muscle tension and helped reduce swelling. It wasn't a powerful medicine, but it was safe for most species. As the mixture soaked into the creature's skin, the faint blue glow from its eyes flickered gently. It was a sign the pain was dropping, at least a little. The king let out a quiet breath of relief. He shifted slightly, still staying close enough for the creature to sense him. The healer looked up at him for a moment and spoke softly, saying the creature was strong, but needed more than physical treatment. It needed calm surroundings. It needed familiar voices. And it needed the king's presence. The king nodded, understanding completely. Hours passed this way, with the healer working slowly and the creature responding in small ways. A twitch here, a deeper breath there. Every improvement felt like a victory dot. When the night finally grew colder, the healer asked the king to help position the creature more comfortably. The two of them worked together carefully, lifting and adjusting its heavy body in a way that didn't trigger more pain. The creature let out a soft sound, not a growl, more like a tired sigh. The healer smiled faintly, glad it still had enough energy to react at all. After adjusting the creature, the healer prepared a new method to communicate with it: gentle vibration therapy. It worked by placing soft pads around the injured area, releasing a pattern of low vibrations that signaled safety to most large animals. It was a technique the healer had used many times before, but never on a creature this massive. The creature tensed at first when the pads touched its skin. Its glowing eyes brightened for a moment, and its claws pressed against the ground. But the healer held a steady hand near its head, keeping the tone of their voice soft and grounding. Slowly, the creature relaxed again. The vibrations were mild, almost like faint tremors of earth during a calm storm. They soothed the nervous system, easing both fear and pain. The king watched, amazed. "My companion has never responded like this," he said softly. "On my world, healers use harsh methods. They believe strength grows only through struggle." The healer shook their head gently and replied that healing wasn't supposed to feel like a battle. It was supposed to feel like relief. That statement made the king look down at the creature again, as though seeing it with new eyes. He had always seen his guardian beast as a symbol of strength and protection, something unbreakable. But tonight, under the faint lights of earth, he saw something different, a living being that hurt, feared, and felt just like any other creature. As the night continued, the healer realized the next step was to treat the internal swelling. This part was risky. One wrong move could cause more pain or even internal damage. But they had to try. The healer told the king to stay near the creature's head and keep speaking in his native language. The familiar voice would calm the creature when the pain grew stronger. The king agreed instantly. He placed his hand on the creature's neck and whispered in rhythmic patterns, using a tone that almost sounded like a lullaby. The creature's eyes half closed again, trusting the king completely. The healer started the deeper work slowly. They used a small, heat-sensitive tool that detected hidden inflammation. The tool glowed softly whenever it found pressure points. When it touched the most swollen area, the creature flinched sharply. Its claws dug into the ground. Its chest shook with a heavy breath. The king leaned forward, whispering louder, urging it to stay calm. The healer paused, placing a steady hand on the creature's fur. After a moment, the creature settled again enough to continue. Every minute felt long. Every movement needed patience. But little by little, the healer reduced the swelling, applying cold packs between treatments and letting the creature rest in short breaks. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The creature's breathing grew slightly smoother, no longer catching on every inhale. The king watched, his eyes filled with gratitude and disbelief. He could hardly understand how one human could do what entire alien healing teams had failed to do. But it wasn't magic. It was patience. Something simple yet rare in desperate moments. The creature eventually drifted into a deeper sleep, a sign that the pain had lessened significantly. The healer sighed with relief, leaning back for the first time in hours. Their shoulders slumped from exhaustion, but there was a soft satisfaction in their expression. The king looked at the healer with sincere respect. He said quietly, "You stepped forward when no one else dared. You saw my companion not as a monster, but as a living being. I will not forget this." The healer smiled faintly and said they didn't need thanks. They only did what felt right. The king shook his head slightly, insisting that doing what is right is often the hardest thing, and those who choose it deserve recognition. A short silence filled the area. Not uncomfortable, but peaceful. The wind carried a faint warmth despite the cold night, almost as if the world itself was relieved. Eventually, workers from inside the facility peeked out again, surprised to see the creature resting instead of trembling in pain. Some looked amazed, others guilty, and a few walked closer, but still at a safe distance, to observe how calm everything seemed. Fear had slowly lost its grip on them. One guard whispered, "It looks almost gentle now." A researcher beside him nodded, replying, "Maybe it always was. Maybe we just never gave it a chance." Those quiet comments drifted through the air, shaping a new atmosphere around the creature. People saw it differently now, not as a danger, but as a powerful being wounded beyond its control. The healer used this moment to begin preparing the next set of treatments for the morning. They organized their tools, wrote down observations, and planned steps to restore the creature's full strength. The king watched them with an expression that carried both relief and awe. The creature shifted slightly in its sleep, stretching one of its large paws. The healer gently adjusted the bandages to keep them from pulling on its skin. The king whispered something, and the creature's breathing steadied again. For a moment, everything felt calm. The fear of the earlier hours seemed distant, fading away into the quiet night. The healer leaned back, stretching stiff muscles, and the king finally allowed himself to breathe deeply. They weren't finished yet. The creature still had a long recovery ahead. But for the first time since arriving on Earth, the direction felt clear. The worst danger had passed. The healer sat beside the creature, watching its slow breaths. The king lowered his head, whispering a soft promise to his companion. And around them, even the humans who had been terrified earlier now saw something different, a connection between species that didn't need words, didn't need fear, and didn't need force. The moment the small group stepped out of the hidden valley, the air felt heavier than before. It was not the weight of danger, but the weight of responsibility. Every step away from the valley felt like walking toward a future no one could predict. The sun above was warm, the wind gentle, yet there was a strange tension in the air, as if the world itself was watching them and waiting to see what they would do next. The human walked ahead, guiding the alien group through tall grass that reached their knees. The land was open, wide, and quiet. In the distance, mountains stood like silent giants, and the sky stretched endlessly over them. Even though the scenery was peaceful, none of them felt relaxed. Everyone knew that the next few days would decide the fate of not only the valley, but also the alien world beyond it. The alien leader walked near the human, her steps steady but careful. She kept looking around, checking for signs of danger, even when none appeared. Sometimes she looked at the human with a mix of trust and confusion. She had grown up believing that humans were unpredictable beings, full of strength and mystery. Now she was walking behind one who had already risked his safety for people he had only met a short while ago. A young alien from the group whispered, "Do you think this plan will work?" The leader answered softly, "It has to." The human heard them, but pretended not to. Instead, he focused on the ground ahead, watching for loose stones or sudden drops. The alien world was beautiful, but its terrain was not designed for easy travel. A single mistake could slow them down, and time was something they didn't have much of. After hours of walking, they reached a stretch of land covered with smooth, silver-like rocks. The humans stopped and gestured for everyone to take a short rest. The aliens lowered their packs and sat in a small circle. The human joined them, though he remained a little apart, as if giving them space. One of the aliens passed a small round fruit to him. He looked at it curiously, sniffed it, and took a cautious bite. The aliens watched him closely. When his expression stayed calm, they relaxed and began eating too. The leader smiled gently. "It is safe. It grows only in peaceful places." The human nodded and took another bite. The fruit was soft and sweet, with a taste that reminded him of warm afternoons and quiet forests. For a moment, he allowed himself to relax. It was rare in journeys like this. As they rested, the leader used a stick to draw circles and lines in the dirt. She was explaining their route and the places where they might meet others from her people. The human watched quietly, then extended a finger and added a line through one of her drawn paths. "If we go this way," he said softly, "it will take longer, but it's safer." She looked at the new path he drew and nodded. "You really think like someone who understands danger." He shook his head lightly. "You don't need to understand danger. You just need to respect it." They resumed their journey. The land changed again, this time to uneven ground covered with thick bushes. The human sliced through some branches to make a path. The aliens followed closely, careful not to step on thorns. As they crossed the area, they began hearing distant sounds, soft, echoing humming noises, almost like voices carried by the wind. The alien leader stiffened, her eyes narrowing. One of the younger aliens whispered, "Are they close?" "Not too close," she replied, "but close enough that we must move quickly." The human didn't ask what the sounds meant. He could tell from the expressions alone that they had to hurry. They moved faster now. The aliens, though tired, kept pace with the human, trusting his direction more with every step. The path led them toward a long ridge, and once they climbed it, the view opened into a wide plain. Down below, patches of blue and green shimmered under the light. It looked peaceful, like a field made of soft colors. But the leader knew better. She pointed to a far-off structure made of pale stone. "That is one of our old posts," she said, "abandoned for years. If we reach it, we can send the signal." The human studied the landscape carefully, scanning for movement. When he saw none, he took a deep breath. "And that's where we go." The descent was harder than the climb. Loose soil and rolling pebbles made every step risky. The aliens struggled to keep balance, and the human often reached back to steady them. The leader was proud, strong, and used to harsh terrains, but even she slipped twice. The human caught her both times, and each time she gave him a grateful nod, though she tried not to show too much emotion. By the time they reached the bottom of the ridge, their legs were aching. Still, they kept moving. The air felt cooler here, and the breeze carried the faint scent of water. Somewhere nearby, small streams flowed under the earth, creating a soft, soothing sound that almost eased their nerves. "It's quiet," one alien said. "Too quiet," another whispered. The leader didn't respond. She could sense what they all felt, a quietness that didn't belong to nature, but to something waiting. They continued toward the old post. The closer they got, the more worn the structure looked. Cracks ran along its walls, and vines wrapped around its lower sides. But it still stood tall, like a memory refusing to fade. As they approached the entrance, the human raised a hand, signaling everyone to stop. He listened carefully. No footsteps. No movement, no hidden threat. Only silence. He stepped inside first, checking every corner. The post was small but strong. Inside, there were old panels covered in dust and a communication device that looked like it had not been used for years. The aliens entered behind him, staring around with a mix of nostalgia and sadness. This place had once been busy, full of voices and life. Now it was only a shadow. The leader walked to the communication device and brushed her hand across the dusty surface. "If this still works," she whispered, "we can reach the council. We can tell them what happened." The human nodded. "Then let's fix it." He checked the back of the device, found some broken connectors, and adjusted them. The aliens watched in surprise. To them, human hands moved like they were made for fixing things. Slow, careful, and confident. Finally, the device hummed faintly. The leader inhaled sharply. She pressed a few buttons, and a soft tone filled the room. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to show the machine was waking up from its long sleep. One of the aliens let out a breath. "We did it." But the leader held up her hand. "Not yet. The signal must reach them, and they must answer." Minutes passed. The tone continued. Then, suddenly, a flicker of light appeared on the panel. A tiny symbol glowed. The leader leaned forward, her voice trembling slightly. Someone received it. The room went silent. Everyone watched the small glowing symbol, waiting for the next response. The human stayed near the doorway, keeping an eye on the outside. A soft voice finally came through, faint but clear enough. "We hear you." The leader's eyes filled with emotion. She spoke in calm, steady words, giving a short summary of everything that had happened. The voice on the other side listened quietly. But when she finished, the voice responded with uncertainty, "We will discuss this. Stay where you are." The communication cut off. The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. "They don't sound ready to help us," one whispered. The leader lowered her head. "They don't trust easily anymore." The human approached her. "Then we won't wait for them." She looked up at him. "What do you mean?" He pointed toward the plains. "Your people are out there somewhere. Some are hiding, some running, some scattered. We don't need the council to start helping them." The alien stared at him with surprise. In something deeper hope. The leader spoke softly. "You want to go look for them?" He nodded. "We start with whoever is closest. One group at a time." The leader's eyes softened. "You are not from our world, yet you act like it matters to you as much as it matters to us." "It does," he said simply. The room felt warmer after that, not because of temperature, but because of a sense that something was shifting. A small beginning, but powerful. They rested for a short while before stepping out again. The journey was far from over, but each of them felt a new kind of strength inside. A strength born from trust, unity, and the belief that even small steps could change the future. As they walked away from the old post, the plains stretched before them like an open promise, and the wind carried a calm whisper that felt almost like encouragement. Their next chapter was waiting, somewhere ahead, and none of them planned to stop until they reached it. The group continued walking across the wide plain, leaving the old post behind them like a fading memory. The sun moved slowly across the sky, painting long shadows on the ground. The air felt soft now, almost peaceful, but beneath that calmness was a quiet urgency that none of them could ignore. They knew danger existed somewhere out there, hidden behind distance and silence, waiting for the right time to appear. But for now, the world around them was open, clear, and bright. The human walked slightly ahead, guiding the small team as if he had known these lands all his life. Behind him, the alien leader followed with steady steps, her eyes scanning the horizon for any movement. The others stayed close, their expressions a mix of worry and determination. Their journey had already changed them, and though they were tired, none of them thought about stopping As they crossed the plain, the leader walked closer to the human. She didn't speak for a while, simply watching how he looked left and right, checking the ground, checking the sky, always alert. Finally, she asked, "How do you stay calm when we don't know what waits ahead?" He shrugged lightly. Calm doesn't come from knowing. It comes from choosing to move anyway. She considered his answer for a moment. "I think our people forgot how to do that. We became too comfortable, too dependent on what was already built. And now," he said softly, "you're building again? One step at a time." They continued walking until a cool wind brushed against them. The human suddenly stopped and knelt on the ground. The aliens gathered around him, curious. He picked up a handful of dirt and let it fall between his fingers. "It's softer here," he said. "Ground like this usually means water nearby." The younger aliens immediately perked up. They hadn't had a chance to refill their water in hours, and their supplies were running low. The leader pointed forward. There used to be a spring in that direction. It might still be flowing. They walked toward the area she indicated. The land dipped slightly, creating a shallow valley filled with tall, thin grass that swayed gently in the breeze. As they moved deeper, they heard its soft trickling sounds, like tiny bells ringing from beneath the earth. One of the aliens broke into a hopeful grin. "It's still here." Sure enough, hidden between rocks was a small spring, its clear water bubbling quietly. The group gathered around it. They cupped the water in their hands, drinking slowly, letting the cool liquid restore their energy. The human drank too, checking the flavor, making sure it was clean. It was fresh, crisp, and surprisingly sweet. The leader watched her people relax for the first time that day. She let out a small breath, relieved. "We needed this." The human wiped his hands on his clothes. "We'll rest here for a short time." "Not too long." The aliens nodded. They understood the need for caution. They sat in a loose circle near the spring, eating small pieces of dried food from their packs. The human joined them, sitting beside a smooth rock. No one said much at first. They simply listened to the water and to the rustling grass. After a while, the leader broke the silence. "You said we should look for our people, even without the council. Why are you so sure they'll follow us?" He thought about his answer. "Because they want hope. And hope follows action, not permission." Her eyes softened, and she slowly nodded. "You speak like someone who has seen loss." "Everyone has," he replied simply. "But loss teaches you what matters." The younger aliens listened quietly. These conversations felt important to them, even if they didn't understand every part. There was something encouraging about seeing their leader talk to the human with trust instead of fear. As they rested, a faint trembling moved through the ground. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but the leader felt it. She pressed her hand against the earth. "Did you feel that?" The human nodded. "Yes." One of the aliens whispered nervously, "Is it?" "Not danger," the leader said quickly. "It's movement. Something large, but slow." They listened for a few seconds. The trembling faded. The human stood up slowly. "We should move. Whatever it was, it's not close now. But I don't want to wait until it is." They packed their things and left the spring behind, continuing their journey through the valley. The ground remained soft, and the air began carrying a new scent, earthy and sharp, like the smell before rainfall. Clouds formed above them, gathering into a thick layer. The light dimmed slightly, though the day was far from over. The human looked at the sky. "It might rain," he said. The leader nodded. "Rain here is not dangerous, but it can slow us." They walked faster. Soon the valley opened into a forest with tall, slender trees whose branches stretched high into the sky. Leaves rustled softly above, and beams of light slipped through in long golden lines. The air smelled fresh, full of plant life. One of the aliens whispered, "I've never been this far from home." Another replied, "None of us have." The leader placed a gentle hand on the youngest alien's shoulder. "You are doing well." "We all are." Inside the forest, sounds echoed in strange ways. Every footstep seemed louder, every breath clearer. The group moved carefully. The human kept his hand near a thick branch he had turned into a walking tool. It wasn't a weapon, but it made him feel prepared. As they traveled deeper, they found broken branches and disturbed soil. The leader checked the ground and frowned. "These marks weren't here long ago," she said. "Something passed through. Your people?" The human asked. "Possibly," she answered. "But it could also be animals. We should be careful." They followed the tracks quietly. The forest thinned ahead, and sunlight returned. When they reached the edge, they saw something that made them all stop. A small campsite lay in the open field. Tents made from simple fabric. Footprints scattered around. A few containers. Nothing looked damaged. Nothing looked abandoned in fear. It looked like a place where someone had stayed and left recently, maybe just a few hours ago. The leader's eyes brightened. "These are ours." The aliens rushed forward to examine the campsite. They touched the tents, felt the ground, and checked inside the containers. Everything was real. Everything belonged to their people. They were here so recently. One said in disbelief, "They can't be far." Another added. The human inspected the footprints. "They moved east," he said, pointing to a long trail. "How many?" The leader asked. "Maybe 7 or 8, he replied. "Walking in a steady line. Not running. Not hiding." The leader felt a wave of relief rise inside her. "They're safe." The human nodded. "Let's catch up." They followed the trail across a gentle slope. The sun began to lower behind them, turning the sky into soft shades of orange and gold. The air grew cooler, and long shadows stretched across the land as they climbed the last hill. They finally saw movement ahead, a small group of aliens walking slowly, carrying packs and sticks. Even from a distance, they looked tired but unharmed. The leader exhaled shakily. The younger aliens beside her whispered with excitement. The humans simply watched, making sure there was no threat nearby. They approached carefully. When the distant group finally noticed them, they froze, startled. But when they recognized the leader, their eyes widened with surprise and joy. One of them shouted, "You're alive." Another cried out, "We thought everyone was gone." The leader quickened her steps, meeting them halfway. The reunion was full of relief, quiet emotions, and heartfelt words. No one shouted. No one panicked. They simply held on to each other, grateful for this unexpected moment of hope. The humans stayed back a little, giving them space. But one of the newly found aliens approached him slowly. "You brought them here?" The alien asked. The human nodded modestly. "We're trying to gather more." The alien stared at him with wonder, then bowed his head slightly. "Then you're already part of our fight." The leader returned to the human after speaking with the group. Her eyes shone with gratitude. "This is only the beginning," she said softly. "There are more out there. Many more." He nodded. "Then we keep moving." She looked over her united people, her voice full of renewed strength. "Yes, we keep going." The sun dipped lower, wrapping the world in warm colors. The group, now larger and stronger, prepared to continue their journey. Their path was still long, still uncertain. But for the first time since everything began, they walked with hope instead of fear. Their story was far from finished, and the next steps would shape everything that came after.